Well, hi everyone, and thanks so much for tuning into the recording today. And my name's Lee Plowman, and I help optometrists to get an online marketing game plan and to put their practice online. And today I'm with Dr Scott Colonna, and if you don't know who Scott is, Dr Scott Colonna is an optometrist, business owner, and innovator in the medical business. He's a native of New York City, and he received his Doctor of Optometry degree from the State University of New York College of Optometry in Manhattan, New York. After graduation, he bought an eye care practice and has increased revenue annually on a massive scale, turning an average practice into one of the country's top 1% revenue group practices. That's pretty impressive. Dr. Colonna is tactful with his business model, and he's implemented proven systems to generate additional revenue to keep his business soaring while not having to see patients. After 16 years of successful being a successful business owner and entrepreneur, Scott decided to transition into becoming an innovator and disruptor in the optical and medical industry. Scott recently launched Uppercut Consulting, providing medical officers with training and coaching and revenue-saving systems to combat the flow of private equity money in the industry to ensure their success and independence from large organisations. So welcome, Scott. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, that's great. I wanted to talk to you, Simon Sinek talks about starting with why. So I'm interested to know, what's your why behind what you do? What gets you out of bed every day?
You know, there's two things I'd say that definitely get me out of bed every day. It does start with my family and my children. My wife and I like to lead a life that sets an example for them, for work ethic and for what we can be proud of, right? Because we feel like they're going to watch their mom and dad on how we handle things, and they're going to pick up on things, and we want them to take that with them as they build their future. So from a personal reason, it's definitely my children and us raising them to be successful, good people in society that are, giving and sharing. So from the business side, it's about helping our clients obtain their goals, and everybody's goals are a little different, whether they're financial goals, whether they're quality of life goals, to spend more time with their family. So our why as a company and as a practice is to make sure that everybody leaves us, it's the patient or a client, and they leave better off than when they first met us, that they're happy with when they're leaving, So that's what we've really built our practice around and our coaching group this past year, and making sure we know what people's goals are so that we can help them attain them going forward.
That's awesome. And yeah, it's for them to succeed, to thrive, to obtain their goals. It must give them so much confidence going forward.
It definitely does, and we're so blessed to be in a profession where we're helping so many people, whether it's young children, adults that are at work, or older patients that need assistance with enjoying things later on in life. I mean, we are in such a unique situation of making such a big difference in quality of life, and that makes it such a special profession to be in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love that. So I wanted to talk about a scenario today. So say that a colleague started a behavioural optometry practice about 2 years ago, and they've been working part-time in the practice, and they might have one office administrator, and they're looking to go full-time now, but they don't have a full appointment book yet. So I wanted to talk today about how to grow that 2-year-old practice to the next level. So before you think about growing the practice, what are some of the non-negotiables that we need to put in place?
Well, we're very big on foundation and core values. So as a business owner, you need to take time and reflect on what your own personal core values are, and then you want to bring that to your place of business. Integrity, passion for our profession and care, sacrifice. Those are the things that are part of our core values here. And we build our team around those by means of, even when we interview new coworkers to come on board and join our team, we are talking about those core values. So the core values start with the owner, and then they are passed on and related to the coworkers and the team, and then bringing new people on really helps us build a cohesive unit for patient care, we believe. So we're very big on that, the core values and what really drives the individual business owner.
For sure. When you're looking at identifying some of those core values, what have you found is some of the best ways to flesh those out?
Sure. For me personally, I spend time just reflecting and talking to some of my mentors. I've always had mentors in my life that have coached me throughout, and I've learned a great deal from them. And those mentors have helped me fine-tune my own viewpoint on myself, okay? And, we always view ourselves one way, but when you start to ask other mentors and seasoned veterans in business what they think of you and how you are perceived to them, it gives you a different point of view. And I think that really helps. So we're very big on, talking with others and getting other points of view. Now, I'm not saying you have to agree with every point of view, but it does bring things to light and make you look at yourself and your business in a different way.
For sure. And personally yourself, you've had a mentor for many years who's been with you for the journey?
Yes. So I've had mentors throughout the years where I started out with someone who was in finance from New York. Unfortunately, he passed away early on in life, and I learned a great deal of my numbers and financial background from him. I played sports, so I've had coaches throughout and teachers through education that have been my mentors and so forth. And in the past year, I've actually brought on another mentor, and we've built this great, almost like family-like bond to help us in the social media marketing area to get out there and help others in a broader spectrum of things instead of just doing it on a one-to-one basis like we were doing for so many years. So that's where it's really expanded our reach to help so many people.
That's awesome. Yeah, so it's about having a mentor that can be with you and help you identify your values, your strengths, and give you positive and negative feedback as well.
Exactly. You want someone who's going to be very honest with you, and my current coach, Danelle Delgado, she is very good at pointing out those things that I need to work on, so that I can better myself and make myself more available for our clients and our patients.
For sure. Yeah. So, if you're just tuning in today, feel free to leave your comments below. We'd love to answer your questions, and also it'd be great if you could share this live video with a friend or colleague as well. We'd really appreciate it. So, thinking about we've identified our core values, and now we're looking to we know that we need to look at bringing someone on to join the team next. So when you're thinking about your next hire, should you hire for skills or for attitude?
Yeah. So over the years of going through this is a learn by experience thing for us. We currently have 55 employees in our medical practice, and really we've gone to a partnership where our team, myself and my partner, Dr. Armando, hire for the person, for the attitude, because we believe that we could train the skills, but you can't train someone to fit the same giving attitude towards the patients and towards your coworkers. So to protect and build the culture you want, we do hire for a good person with good values themselves. And we believe that we've had much more success, and we know that it's easier to train those skills, and they get more excited about it because you have a good person inside them. They want to help patients. They want to help their coworkers work as a team. So then we train them up on the skills after, and we've gotten much better success with that over the years.
I've heard that, so there's like 3 examples would be someone who's humble, so humble, hungry, and smart. So humble, but they're also hungry to do the best they can for you, and also emotionally smart as well. That they understand. They walk into a room and they can understand what's happening, what the vibe is. So, what sort of is that? Is that similar to some of the value, some of the techniques that you use when you hire?
We do. So the humble is definitely a part of it, of what we talk about. Also, it's about teamwork. We're very big into teamwork and trying to get coworkers into the proper position for them to excel. So we give them a job description. It's written. We discuss it to them in the beginning when they're brought on. But we really want to get them in the best situation for them to flourish and use their own individual skills to take that position to the next level. We're not very big into micromanaging. We want to bring people on that if we trust them to handle their job, well, they're going to trust us, and that relationship is a big bond to build.
For sure. Are you into any curly interview questions at all?
So I will say that my team is handling a lot of that right now, but a lot of it is, about things that in situations where they've been able to either head a project or coordinate with other coworkers. So we're trying to get them to talk about examples in their life where they've had to work with others.
Right.
We try to steer away from anybody who talks about the individual I or me kind of conversation.
Right.
So we gear it much more towards that group setting or teamwork setting of questions.
For sure. It's obviously vital. With a group of 55 employees, it's important to work together well.
It's true. And it's something that it's a constant thing that we're working on every day. It's not like you get it set and it stays that way forever. There's always dynamics, as in our personal life. Things happen, and they happen with our team that we have to constantly be reminding and dealing with and so forth to keep them in that cohesive unit.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Keep on maintaining it. Just want to say welcome to Tom Roger and Dr. Darren Lee as well. Thanks for tuning in today. Feel free to leave any comments or questions for Dr. Colonna in the comments below. And yeah, I first came across your practice, Scott, through Odie's on Facebook. I think you did a walkthrough of your practice, and it was just amazing to see what you've been able to build and achieve. It's incredible.
Well, I appreciate that. We didn't start out that way. We started out much smaller, than probably what you saw on that tour. So
that's wonderful. And it's great to know that you've been able to build a system and have everything work well for you in that way. So with your optometrist and handing off to dispensers, how do you work on improving your capture rate for prescriptions?
Sure. So the most successful way we put together for our protocol for increasing capture rate does start with the doctors in the exam room. The doctors prescribing what they recommend for the best health care and protection of the eyes for the patient is really the most important factor in our success rate improving over the years. So the doctor being familiar with the different products that could benefit and protect the patient's eyes, prescribing them in the room and talking to them and educating them in the room, it starts there. We do have medical assistants that are scribes in the room currently with our doctors. So what happens is, after the doctor is done doing the eye exam, the medical assistant will take the patient into our optical area, and they will perform a handoff to our optician or frame stylist and just review what the doctor recommended and build that bond, introducing the patient to the frame stylist or optician.
For sure.
Then the frame stylist will take it from there and then re-educate again on the things that the doctor said initially.
Mm-hmm.
So find that handoff, and the handoff for years, it was a challenge because sometimes obviously if it's not done properly, that communication breakdown affects the patient, and then the patient just kind of wanders around in the optical and gallery, and they're not really given that personal attention. Mm-hmm. So we really try to make that introduction and that first meeting with the frame stylist optician a bond between them and the patient so that they could take it from there. And we've seen our capture rate go up a great amount with that process that we have in hand right now.
Oh, that's awesome. So for the ODs or the optometrists, when they've finished or during their examination, are they talking about hobbies and lifestyle and those sort of factors in the exam, or does the frame stylist work on those?
So we ask those questions during our history. So right now we have a medical assistant that does pre-testing before. So all the insurance is taken care of right away when they come in. Then the patient is escorted into a pre-test room or exam room for pre-testing, depending on the setup that day. And during the history, we do ask occupational hobby questions and how patients use their eyes, and that is noted on their chart at that time. So that does give a lead-in to the doctor for the exam. So it is prepping why they're here, if they are into sports of certain types, or if they use a lot of computer use. Those questions are asked by the medical technician in the beginning. It is then reinforced again by the doctor in the exam room. So it's almost like we've talked about their issues and how they use their eyes almost 3 different times while they're here.
It sounds like that from a patient's perspective, you really know who they are because you've told them who they are several times.
It's true, and the patients want to communicate with us. They build bonds with not only the doctors, because in our setup, the doctor does not spend the most time with the patient. In our setup, the medical assistants and our staff spends more total time with the patient than the doctor actually does. Mm-hmm. So our patients, through the years, almost 17 now, build bonds with our staff in the community for so many years. So it's a very special thing. They're not just coming for the doctor, they're coming for the office and the staff.
For sure. Yeah, that's great that it's a shared experience. It's not heavily dependent on the doctor. But there's great support staff too. It
is so true, and it's allowed me and my partner, John, to do what we're doing now and not be in direct patient care on a weekly basis. So patients have so much faith in our staff and the doctors that we have here that they have stayed with us, because we were nervous about that, right? Mm-hmm. You build a practice for so many years, you have a following, and it was like, whoa, we're going to stop seeing patients. Is our revenue going to drop through the floor, right? But I'm going to tell you that we did not miss a beat. We communicated with our patients up front and told them that we were going to be transitioning our careers a little bit. We were still present in the office, and we were here for them, and we would still see their families and support their sports teams and whatever it is, But it transitioned much better than we could have ever expected, and it's allowed us to now help other offices.
And when did that process start of communicating to patients? Was that a period of time before you planned to change the way that you did things?
Yeah, so I would say we started preparing patients well over a year before we were actually going to start the transition. Mm-hmm. So we were seeing patients 5 days a week, and we did it on a gradual scale. Mm-hmm. So we didn't just take 5 days and go that way. What we did was we were building a following. John and I would see more patients on our personal schedules than some of the other doctors, and then we were able to take some of those patients and build our associates that we were bringing on. So as we decreased the day, we would shift some of those to the associate doctor we were handling. Mm-hmm. And we did that over time, but we were letting them know probably at least 12 to 18 months before that we were going to be decreasing our patient time as we did transition. So it was a long process to do, but we felt like we needed to do that because the average patient comes in just over once every 2 years, right? So you need to start well in advance if you think you're going to start to bring on an associate to help see patients.
Absolutely. And to get to that point that you can step out, that must have been I guess it shows the faith and the trust that you have in your team to carry on the vision that you have.
It is so true. I mean, we've been very blessed with the people that have been around us and helped us build this, company and practice for the community through the 17 years. I mean, we started with 7 employees to get to 55, and the majority of that 7 is still here. 1 or 2 of them have retired since, and they don't no longer working, but we do have our core group of people that have stayed with us, and that's what really makes it special, right? That we started in a very small manner, and we're able to scale it to take care of more patients, and it's been a very special journey for us.
And when you do bump into people at sporting events or in the community, they're still happy to pick up where they left off with you?
They really are. I mean, they still come to the office. We see them here. They'll still send me a text message and say, I'm here if you're in the building, love to say hi, or ask about our children, or they see pictures of the children on social media, and they can't believe how big our kids have grown to. So it really has stayed much better than I ever expected, that relationship with our patients in the community.
That's great. It's really rewarding that way. Yeah. What would you say to the doc? Say they're doing 30-minute appointments at the moment. G'day, Jason, and thanks for joining us today. So, yeah, they're currently doing 30-minute appointments, and they're doing pretty much everything themselves, and then handing over to a lens stylist or a dispenser afterwards. What would you say to that doc who's sitting on the fence about starting to delegate more of their responsibilities?
Mm-hmm. So I would say the first thing that we discuss with our clients when they ask us this question would be, I don't have, $45,000 to just pay someone new, but I know I'm going to need someone in the future to bring them on, So I look at it this way. You don't have to take the $45,000 out of your pocket today and pay that all up front to the employee that you're going to be bringing on. It is something that you gradually pay them each week. Mm. So if you have to budget, because of taxes and benefits, I always say to add 15% onto whatever their salary is. If you have to pay them, $52,000, then, it's $1,000 a week. Mm. Take how many patients you see, and if you average, $250 per patient, that means you need to see 4 more patients in a week to pay for that salary. Mm. So I look at the coworker coming on as almost an investment financially. We do a cost analysis and say, if I bring on a medical assistant and I decrease my exams to every 20 minutes or 15 minutes, and I could see double the amount in an 8-hour day, I could potentially see 16 more in a day. And 16 more in a day, you only need 4 in a week to pay for that employee. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how we approach that, okay, because it's a nervous thing to just bring someone on that we're not used to. Mm-hmm. But we look at it from the financial side of how they will save the doctor time. We believe that the doctor should be in the room for the things we went to school for and what we were trained to do. Mm-hmm. And delegate as much of the other ancillary testing and stuff that we can to our staff. So that's how we can see more patients, still keep that bond with our patients, and give a high level of quality care.
For sure, yeah, and maintaining that bond is really important. I know going to an ophthalmologist, some people talk about the doctor only saw me for 5 minutes, and that's hard to be able to convey the clinical findings and also to maintain the rapport. But you're proposing that it's you still get to maintain that good relationship.
You definitely do. I know doctors that have seen, I could say before I stopped decreasing my schedule, I was probably seeing John and I close to 5 or 6 an hour, but still leaving time, a couple of minutes to talk about school with the children and what sports they were playing and where they were going that weekend. Those are some of the things that we really realized were really important. So we wanted to make sure we had a couple of minutes scheduled in for that.
Yeah, that's really good. It shows the human side of who you are.
It does, and that's why we went into this profession in the beginning, to build bonds with the families and the children. I know that's why I went into it. I did like that bedside manner and the ideas of getting to know. I mean, my specialty has always been infants and pediatrics. So when I was seeing small children at 1 year old or even less before, and then seeing them grow up, it has been such a rewarding thing that you cannot put a price on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's priceless. Thank you guys for tuning in today. If you're just joining us, please share this video. I'm talking with Dr. Scott Colonna. I really appreciate that. So if you're, say, going back to the 2-year-old practice, you've been able to build it up, hasn't been taking any insurance so far for eye exams or medical. How do you know whether to, when you're talking to a practice for the first time, what do you advise them about insurance? Should they try and incorporate a couple, or try and what do you normally recommend?
So first we look at their schedule to say how many days they're working. Are they working full-time or part-time? We find it very common with some doctors where they're open full-time, but they're not full on any day. Mm-hmm. So the first thing we counsel them on is cutting their actual hours down in the office, but making sure they fill those hours while they are there to make them more efficient.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it gives a perception to the patients that they're going to come in and that the office is a busier office. And they're going to say, wow, I went over there, they were a really busy office, as opposed to spreading them out over 40 hours, mm-hmm. right? So we say to schedule your time accordingly. And then once you hit, the other common thing we hear is, well, I can't get we're really busy, I can't get anybody in for a couple of weeks, mm-hmm. okay? Once you hit past 2 weeks, when you go on to week 3, patients are going to start calling other offices because they don't want to wait that long in today's society. So you're going to be losing potential new patients and new revenue to your practice. So first we try to maximize that flow on a full-time basis. If it's 40 hours, maybe some evening hours because they're very attractive to the working population, and Saturdays. And, we take most types of insurance. So I look at it as, if you are going to be a specialty practice and that is going to fill your goals personally, well, you can stay that way without the insurance. But if you have down chair time, where there's empty chair time and you have staff there that you're paying, then that's where I start to introduce medical insurances to help fill that chair time.
For sure. Yeah, that helps to attract more people in because they know they get their insurance accepted through you.
Exactly. And our patients today are very insurance driven, especially here in the States. They want to know what their insurance covers, who's on the panel, and so forth. So I think that's really an important part to keep in mind for them, because they're asking about their insurance. They might be a family you've been seeing for years. You don't want to lose them. You want to keep that bond with them. So I think you have to be open towards taking certain types of insurances, and you evaluate what the reimbursements are to see if it's worth you bringing them into your office. For
sure. It's important to be able to maintain that, because the family might, you might lose some of that connection, the relationship you've built if you don't continue that. But also, if the reimbursements were going down and you wanted to reevaluate where things were at, What's the best way to go about that?
So for us, it has to do with, we calculate every patient that comes into the office, and we figure out what they financially, we get reimbursed in total for that visit. So some offices do it just for comprehensive eye exams or specialty exams in behavioral optometry. Some do medical follow-ups and they separate that all out. We take everything into account so we know how much that time slot is actually worth, including optical.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that if we're averaging $200 a patient per time slot, and we are not booked for 8 slots a day, we are potentially losing $1,600 in income per day.
Mm.
So I do that, again, that cost analysis part to the reimbursement part. And I would do the same with the insurance, you know. So the insurance will drop your average dollar amount per patient down, but your gross revenue should go up because you're going to be filling those empty slots. So I look at it on the whole for the entire, the entire day as far as that.
For sure, like you said before about making sure that when you're working that you've got a full book of patients.
Yes, and that's the most important part, and I think it keeps us, I know it keeps my day, it's much more enjoyable when my day just keeps going and I have one thing after the other, right? Because if you have a lull, then you lose your focus a little bit, and then it's harder to get back on, back onto it, back focused on the patients, and back focused in what you're looking to do with your staff and build for your company. So.
And if you have, say, 15 or 20-minute appointments during the day, do you schedule some breaks in the day when you can just take a breather, get a drink of water? Is that something that you schedule in?
Sure. So most of our doctors do get a lunchtime break, usually for an hour. They all don't need an hour according to them, but it does give them time in case they're a little bit behind, to give them that space, break in the middle of the day to handle that, And there is some times during the day, we've decreased our no-show rate dramatically with the protocol that we put in some years back. So what we kind of do for that is we take our patient list 2 days before, we pre-verify them to make sure they're coming in. So we use technology to confirm the appointment through text. And the ones that do not confirm, we check everybody's insurance to make sure that it's still active and let them know if they have high deductibles or co-pays. We call them if there's an issue with their insurance. If they cancel, we have an active list that we've been filling from. So if we can't get a patient in for 2 weeks, we booked them a 2-week appointment, and then we put them on this active list. So when someone can't come in within 24 to 48 hours, we call them immediately to fill that empty chair time. So that's how for a practice our size, we probably added between $300,000 to $400,000 a year in that protocol list that we put together. And it works in any medical office or any practice because we all get late cancellations, right? And it happens, schedules with children, traffic, whatever it is. But the ability to call someone and say, we have this, it just opened up, can you be here in an hour and a half? And they're like ecstatic over it. They're going to love your practice so much more for getting them in sooner,
Absolutely. Yeah, that one person, they've broken their glasses. They're like, oh, can you please get me in soon?
Exactly. And especially it's usually on a Friday evening, later time before you have to go somewhere else. That's when it happens. But you make a bond for the future with them and their family.
If you've got a miracle optician, that's always a good thing too.
It does, and it's something that we're very blessed that we have a great group of people here, and at our size, we do a lot of our own in-house edging and have things prepared that we can stock things for patients in those emergency cases.
That's great. Yeah, it's also really nice when the patients are grateful for that, and maybe the next day they bring you in a box of chocolates, or it's just really rewarding.
Exactly. Our staff and our doctors are always getting things brought into them from the patients and stuff. It's another part of what we do that makes it very special.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. So thinking about the appointments, just before patients come in to see you, do you have some forms or paperwork that they complete that you ask them to fill in before the appointment, and what does that look like?
Yep. So we do have things accessible on our website for them to look at, but we still go through it in a traditional manner because it's such pertinent information with them when they do come in. Our HIPAA protocols are there for them to read before, and then when they check in at the front desk, that's also given to them. So we kind of do it both ways. They can review it online and bring it in and print it out if they want, but if they feel uncomfortable with that, because sometimes people don't have time or remember to print them out or the access, then we will hand it to them before and they'll start filling out their history as we call them in to be pre-tested. So we kind of do both ways just to cover, and then the medical assistants will review that to make sure there's been no changes or errors, or if there's any confusion, obviously with medications, they can be complicated sometimes, to make sure we medically and legally get those things correct from the start.
Okay, for sure. So you found that paperwork, having a paper copy works better. Have you ever thought or tinkered with the idea of having electronic forms through your website, or that hasn't been so far?
So we've done 2 attempts at our office and for electronic medical records. And being in a unique situation where of our size of our staff, what we found is it decreased our patient revenue very quickly because everybody was trying to learn the new system, you know. So I think for smaller practices, it's much easier to onboard because you have less staff to train in the beginning. So I advise it at that point, if you could build it in then, that's a great time to start it.
For sure.
With us, with the 55 employees and the bigger clients we have, any small type of change in revenue can be dramatic. So the average decrease in mid to higher level practices can be up to 2 to 4 weeks of a decrease of 50% in revenue by onboarding EHR, you know, and then most of the doctors are still saying that they still, after that, haven't gotten back to their full capacity of what they were seeing before. So, again, we do an analysis with them to look at the cost of it and how much it is to purchase the program. Sometimes you have to upgrade your Wi-Fi, your software, your server, and so we do this complete analysis for them to help them with, you know, making that big decision. But I think for smaller practitioners, especially ones just starting out, it's definitely a more successful transition for them at that point, and that's the time it should be done.
For sure. So if you've got a small practice, you can implement bigger changes more easily than for a larger practice.
Exactly.
So with the doctors having a full day and having lunch as well, when do they normally get through to finish writing charts or referral letters, or when do they normally try to do that during the day?
Yeah. So most of our doctors get their charts done during the day because the medical assistant in the room is a scribe for them. So as I do my eye exam and I'm doing my externals and my slit lamp, I'm just calling out my findings. My scribe is writing it all down as I'm doing it. So we save half the amount of time right there.
Right.
And I just fill in my assessment and plan, or if I have to draw in any pathology in the optic nerve or retinal area, you know. So that time with the scribe really cuts my exam time in half again, you know. So it was a very big move to do that, but it's really increased that. It gave me back those minutes in that shortened exam time to still have that quality of care conversation and personal conversation with, you know, our patients.
Yeah, absolutely. It must be a huge time saver.
It really.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying it really is a huge time saver, and think about it in, you know, we look at 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and we've timed our protocols with a stopwatch at times, to make sure that we're really saving it. But if you save 3 to 5 minutes per patient throughout the day, it really adds up for you, for the doctor, for the staff, and for your revenue at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And having the scribe take notes, does the doctor then input those into the system, or is that that's taken care of?
So that's taken care of by our technicians.
Mm-hmm.
And scanning that needs to be done. We've been working on that project recently, is done after the fact. So that part isn't done at that time in the exam room, though, but later on.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. It's it must be freeing for the doctor. I don't have to spend all this time writing out my notes.
It definitely is, and you know, I remember when I first started and we didn't have these protocols in place, but, you know, at the end of the night, you're done seeing patients, and then you have to finish up and so forth, and coding and billing. You know, it can make your day really run a lot later than you want to, especially when you do have a family and stuff. So we really just focus on efficiency during the day, and we make sure everybody gets out, for the most part, 90% of the time, I would say, on time at the end of the day for the staff and doctors.
That's fantastic. I've got memories of spending hours on a weekend writing up letters and reports, and meanwhile the family's doing other stuff. So, so it is nice to know that it's when you've got a clean slate, it feels really good.
It really does, you know, and we all have to go through those things to appreciate what we're doing now and the new protocols that we're putting in place, right? It makes us value things. In the beginning, we all put in those extra hours, and I think the first 3 years John and I opened the practice, I don't think we took a net vacation day. We didn't miss weddings and bachelor parties and all of those things, but the whole, it's really rewarding now, later on, right, where we're in this situation because we did sacrifice to build our company and practice the way we did back then together.
When did you find that you reached that point of, so you worked really hard, you missed all those some important days, but when did you reach that point of, I'm actually starting to be able to go to these events now?
Mm-hmm. So, the turning point I think for me personally was, my son was, I think it was 5 when he was starting T-ball. T-ball was always on Saturday mornings. So, and I grew up playing baseball, basketball, and sports, so I believe that they're an important part of what we do as a family because it helps build teamwork and character, and it's great for exercise. I think that's really important for the children. So what happened was that whole year I worked every Saturday. Unfortunately, I missed every one of my son's T-ball games. And I felt really bad about that. You know, we were still building the business to a point where we were close to getting where I could start taking some Saturdays off, but I didn't want to let go of that, right? We built it to such a point where I was like, well, I need to be there. If the office is open, we need to be there, kind of thing. And so when I sat with my accountant, and I consider myself a pretty wise financial business owner from my upbringing, but at the end of the year when I sat with the accountant, I made more money gross, but it moved me up in a tax bracket, so I netted the same amount as the year before, and I missed every T-ball game.
Oh, no.
So that's where I vowed to change how I was approaching things and run the business as the business person that I am, and hire more and delegate more out to staff members and bring on associate doctors more. So that was really the turning point for me personally, where I was just working, and I missed something very important that I couldn't take back. And I'm not saying that, you know, the T-ball, he's played plenty of games, I've gotten to see them, he doesn't remember that probably at this point. Yeah. But I learned a great deal from that event on how I'm doing things going forward.
And I guess going back to what you mentioned about mentorship, that if you hadn't had that that wise counsel before, you might not have been able to achieve that.
Exactly. And it's something that you could really prevent a lot of these issues and ahead of time by having different mentors. And some of the most successful business people in the world have multiple mentors depending on what field they're in, right? They might have social media mentors and marketing mentors, obviously. They might have business coaches or fitness trainers to take care of their health if they have some health issues. So there are great people out there we could all benefit from, and you should consider that when you're trying to build, you're building your company, you're building your life. These are other avenues that you should, welcome in and take advantage of.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all about going through, traveling the road that someone else has been on before. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. So say if you're a 2-year-old practice and you are looking to grow, I've heard of some people talk about a percentage of overall revenue that you spend on marketing, like 5%, 10%, and it varies a bit. What sort of, how do you think about growing, putting a budget towards marketing for your clients?
Mm-hmm. So I think there's two approaches to it. The traditional way is, like you mentioned, to budget, anywhere from 2 or 3% up to 10% for marketing, depending on the size of the company. We always recommend looking at budgeting and cost savings in January. I'm very big into that, to spend just January negotiating and getting everything under control so you know what you have to spend each month. But then the next 11 months should be about growing your business, growing the top line. You can only cut costs so much, and I don't believe that you can cut costs enough to be really successful, right? It's all about growing the top line and the revenue after you've handled those things. So when it comes to marketing, and we just had this conversation, John and I, recently, where, again, I approach it, and we approach it as a cash flow issue. So if we spend $10,000 on marketing and we are generating $20,000 in revenue from that marketing, well, I want to spend $100,000 on it so I can make $200,000. So for me, it's a revenue generating thing where what we put into it, you have to monitor your return on it and investing back in your company. So that's where I challenge the traditional way a little bit on the 2 to 5%, depending on size, or 10% depending on your practice size, But if something is working and you're getting a great return on it, well, I tend to invest more in it so that I can get a greater total dollar, return on it in the future.
Right. So January is when you'd be weighing up, okay, what revenue did we get this last year from doing these marketing activities?
Exactly. You look at the past year, you make sure you put a protocol in with your staff that you're monitoring whatever you're doing in marketing so you can see the true return on that marketing, whatever type of campaign it is, whether it's Facebook, website, social media, aspects of things. And just by asking that, and we ask that in our history, or we ask that when we book an appointment, how did you hear about us? Mm-hmm. That's your way of knowing I heard about it from your Facebook page. I saw your Facebook tour of your office. Everybody should do a tour of their office and put it on their website. Mm-hmm. Show things before why they should come to you. I really feel that they're going to come. Make them feel comfortable before they even show up. Let them see it. Let's take advantage of technology to make them comfortable with things. And the care you're going to provide them before they even show up at the office. So,
I love that point about making them feel comfortable, because it's enough to show someone some nice looking photos of a practice, but if they don't have that personal touch that a video tour does, then it's hard for them to differentiate how comfortable they're going to feel.
Exactly. It makes people very comfortable when they know what your waiting room looks like, what your exam room looks like, And I do get some clients where they're like, well, I don't know if I want to show that. Well, if you're telling me you don't know if you want to show that, then you need to get a can of paint and you need to update some of your colors, or you need to, because if you don't feel that you can portray yourself and talk about and show your practice in a certain way, well then how is the patient going to feel when they show up, right? You don't want them to feel that it's dated or it's not the way it should be. So be proud of what we're building in our profession and your practice, and that will be passed on to the patients as you take care of it.
And maybe as you get excited about your practice and you see the new paint looking awesome and you're proud of it, then you can be a better representative on video as well. You're more committed to bringing people in.
Exactly. And one thing, it's kind of like a snowball effect. Once you start with one little thing, you'll add to the excitement of it for yourself and your staff. And once you bring that passion out from yourself, it will get passed on to the staff and the patients. So that's where you'll really see the returns going forward in years to come.
Absolutely, that's great. I like to. We've got some locally roasted coffee. I'm a coffee fan, and we've got locally roasted coffee, and I love talking to my patients about it. And when I get a chance to make them a cup of tea or a cup of coffee as well. So, yeah,
that's a great personal touch, right? Anything we could do to set ourselves apart or make that experience more special is what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, Scott, we've covered some great things today. We've talked about setting a culture and vision for your practice. We've talked about hiring. We've talked about patient flow and insurance and marketing as well. So thank you so much for all that you've shared with us today.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's so enjoyable, and we're always available, myself and my team, if anybody ever has any follow-up questions or just wants to talk about things.
What is the best way to get in touch with either yourselves or one of your team members?
Yep. So the best way is probably through our social media site for Uppercut Advantage, and our website is uppercutadvantage.com. But you could always just, send me a friend request through Facebook. That's most of what we do, Facebook, LinkedIn. So there's, through the social media ways are probably the easiest ways to get in touch with us. So I really would appreciate it if any questions or any way we could help.
For sure. And if you're, and people can see you, people can find you on ODs on Facebook and all of the big optometry groups.
That's correct. We are on those and even medical groups, because we do help other medical practitioners with their field, such as, ophthalmology, dental, chiropractors. So we're trying to help as many medical practice accomplish their goals as we can.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Scott. I hope you enjoy achieving your goals. And all the best with Uppercut Consulting.
Thank you very much. You guys have a great one. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much.